Senator Dave Cortese will be first on the agenda. Welcome, Senator Cortese.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Just got in front of a laptop after being in various committee hearings all day, so it's good to be with you.
Well, thank you for making the time.
Sure, that's great. The first thing I want to do is, so I don't forget, I want to do it first, is to plug our 19th annual Sacramento Bus Trip. And I think you and others have distributed, some of the information about that electronically. But just to let people know who may be unaware at this point, I've done, going all the way back to my city council days, when we first created the District 8 Roundtable, we started doing a bus trip to Sacramento. It started off with a small shuttle bus. It ended up, by the time I finished as a member of the Board of Supervisors pre-COVID, with 5 buses going to Sacramento, tour buses. So we ended up over the years bringing lots and lots of people up to Sacramento, oftentimes for their first experience engaging firsthand with legislators. The trip was originally a trip that was called for by what was then a very smaller version of the District 8 Roundtable that wanted to object to education funding cuts that were going on. And they asked me to bring a petition to the governor at the time. And I basically said, look, I'll go bring the petition, but I want you to come with me. So we turned it into a group trip. And what we've done ever since then is it's like it's basically like a rolling town hall, if you can think of it that way. Instead of having a town hall here and inviting legislators and elected officials to show up and then getting all the excuses about, well, people are in committees and people are in Sacramento and all that stuff, we set up shop right there at the Capitol. In the past, we've used a committee room. And as we got larger with the trip, we started just utilizing the outside lawn space on one side of the Capitol underneath the trees, folding chairs and a podium. It's all very professionally done, but you don't have to run around and knock on doors or go visit various legislative offices. You can break away from the group and go do things like that. But the idea is that the legislators come to you. And, I'd say of late, our split has been about 70% non-student adults, many of whom are just community leaders, neighborhood leaders, average people, whatever, and maybe 25-30% students, depending on how many students sign up, with their teachers or with classrooms and that type of thing. So that's going to be happening on the 18th of May, which is 3 days after when the May revise usually comes out. Technically, the May revise comes out typically on May 15th. In this case, it might be May 17th. But the idea is that the May revise is the governor's, in a sense, his last shot at revising his own budget based on input that he's received from the legislature and new revenue figures and things like that. So it is a great time to go there and say, what have you done for me lately? What are you doing for education? And we certainly encourage people to raise other issues as well. What are you doing about Caltrans litter cleanup? What are you doing about affordable housing? What are you doing to invest more money in services for the homeless, for the unhoused? And these are all fair game questions. So to ask legislators, to ask representatives from, sometimes we'll have a representative from one of the major unions, like the California School Employees Association is essentially a co-sponsor this year. The Silicon Valley Education Foundation is a co-sponsor. The Silicon Valley Leadership Group is not formally a co-sponsor, but their CEO is a sponsor, and so on. And we'll probably pick up a couple more sponsors along the way. So it gives you an idea. There's you have to leave early in the morning. You have to, you don't need to bring any food. One of the sponsors, the Education Foundation, pays for a free box lunch for everybody. And obviously you're welcome to bring snacks and things like that, but there's light refreshments and a lunch that are provided. And usually we're back in time for people to have dinner at home here in San Jose. So for details on that, go to my Senate District 15 website, and whoever's, I forget which staff is with me on this call, but hopefully they can put that in the chat so people just have the link rather than me trying to read it all out. One of the things that you're going to hear a lot about in the future, I mentioned some of the kind of hot topics of our day, right? But one of the things that's education related that you're going to hear a lot about, you'll hear a lot about it from me, but from others, is the investment in mental health services, especially in our schools, and the connecting those services even more so, with county services to make sure that instantaneously as possible, students can be with a coordinator, a county coordinator, a school linked coordinator, or in a wellness center. And we're really doing a lot as our school districts in much of the county to remove the stigma early with young people about identifying or self-identifying as somebody who needs to take a break and and step into a wellness center, maybe even peer referred by somebody who notices that there's something going on. That those kinds of things you'll see a pretty massive investment in the state budget. The budget as we know it right now is the second year of major surplus. Last year, despite COVID, you'll probably recall, the tables were turned. People worked hard, including, I'm sure, most every one of you, and the income tax stayed up, actually grew in the state instead of declining like people thought it would because of COVID shutdown. And that resulted in over $50 billion in surplus for the state, which is unheard of historically. And the first thing that happens when you have a surplus because of Prop 98, which has been around for a while, is when you have that kind of a surplus, right off the top, before the legislature or the governor can spend any of that money anywhere else, it is the cut for education. And that formula says that you in what was last year about 38 billion for, I hope I said billion a minute ago, not million, billion for education overall went on to the education budget roll permanently, right? It doesn't just go there for 1 year, it's ongoing. So this year we have to match that plus whatever the formula says we have to do with this year's surplus. This year's surplus is 20 to 30 billion. So again, a big, I hate to call it a windfall because education has been struggling for money for so long, but certainly a huge chunk of ongoing money again for the second year for education. And that's why we're able to invest dollars in things like mental health services, behavioral health services, just essentially social emotional development support in the schools. A lot of people don't realize that, even some school board members, that the majority of the state budget, general fund budget, goes to education. It's, it's unlike a city where the vast majority of money goes to firefighters and police officers, or a county where the vast majority of money goes into safety net services. At the state level, the bulk of the budget actually goes to education. Many years ago when Prop 13 passed, one of the authors of Prop 13, Mr. Gan, helped pass another measure, which we call the Gan Limit, which says that when you have so much surplus as we have now, that the money needs to go directly back to the taxpayers. And it can only go in three ways: cash, or it could go in public works projects. So think of your favorite local public works project that's really needed. And that could be what the money's for, or education. So infrastructure, meaning public works, education, or rebates to the taxpayers. You'll see a combination, I'm very certain, of all three of those this year. So people will get checks, especially people who were in middle income and lower income categories, not the very wealthy. They may not be huge checks in your life, but the idea is whether they're $200 or $300 or $400. In part, I think there's a recognition that with inflation the way it is and the cost of basic necessities like gasoline and other things right now going up, that people can use some cash to sort of restabilize their own budgets. And of course, that's in keeping with what I just described, the Gan limit. But we also know that we have huge infrastructure needs in terms of roads and highways and transportation, and in some places, school facilities that need to be built, things like that. So you will see a big infrastructure investment. And again, probably with a little more emphasis on education than usual, because this limit, Gan limit, allows us to direct money there, which we wouldn't be able to direct somewhere else. We can't just, for example, take money out of that surplus and create larger CalWorks programs in the county or CalFresh programs for food. Those aren't infrastructure. They're not rebates to the taxpayer, right? Well, if they go into the schools, that might work because it's education, but if they're going to the county, that doesn't work. So that I'm just trying to distinguish that for you. So that's what's happening at the state level. But the good news is this isn't going to be a year of cuts. This is going to be a year of investment. I don't really like it when people talk about all their bills, all their legislation, because it becomes, Senate bill this and Senate bill that, and all the numbers start to just sound like a bunch of numbers. But I have a very robust bill package in this session, over 24 bills that are alive and well, and they range from criminal justice reform to youth criminal justice reform to climate and decarbonization issues to guaranteed income for homeless, unhoused 12th grade students that are graduating out on their way to college that are struggling for 4 or 5 months during the summer. Those are examples of some of the legislation that in legislative areas that I'm putting forward. And if you want details on any of that, I didn't mean to say that I'm not interested in talking about it or getting you information. Certainly my staff could get you bill analysis or summaries of these bills or whatever you want. We send out pretty frequent online and social media updates. If you want to be on that list and you don't feel that you are already, by all means, let us know and we'll get you on there. The main website, the main email address for our office is senator.cortese@sen.ca.gov. If you have that and you want information or you want to give information or you want to tell us or me what I should be prioritizing, which is always welcome. That email address gets you right in, and from there, people drop what they're doing and start helping you or get that message directly to me. So thank you. That's just kind of a general overview, mostly good news, but again, I find, generally folks want to talk about what they're interested in, not what I'm guessing that you're interested in, but what you're actually interested in. So I wanted to make sure to allow some time for questions.
All right, Rebecca had a question. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Thank you, Juan. Nice to see you, Senator Cortese.
Hi, good to see you too.
I'm really happy that you represent my area now. As much as I love John Laird, I'm really happy that you're our senator now.
Yeah.
My question is about the education funding. So does Prop 13 prohibit the use of that extra money from being used for salaries and benefits for staff or for school personnel?
No, as a matter of fact, last year, on average, staff got about a 5.5% increase, if I remember the numbers right, on the salary schedule. So that's, again, not one time. That means if you were making whatever.
Compounds, right?
$20 an hour and you add 5% to it, obviously now it's $21 an hour, and it stays that way. It becomes your new base. So yes, Prop 98 let me back up and just say is I think you're aware, Rebecca, but maybe not everyone is. In education, I said it's the biggest hit on the state budget. It's the biggest part of the state general fund. But when you go to your local school district, whether it's around here, Elm Rock, Eastside Union, whatever, usually about 85% of their budget is personnel costs. Because if you think about it, it's not overloaded with personnel costs. It's just that's what education is. It's teachers and classified employees, cafeteria cooks, and it's people standing in front of students delivering, right? And so there's only about 15% on a good day of sort of flex in those district budgets. So not only does the money go to the salary schedule, but probably it would be fair to say predominantly that's where a lot of those dollars will go.
Good to hear. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Right, I don't see other questions. I really appreciate you stopping by, Senator, and giving us information. So again, thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful night, Senator.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for what you're doing, and thanks for keeping, D5 United together for such a long time and convening people and raising issues. And I know there's some local issues I'm not involved in because I'm not at the city or the county anymore, local land use and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't or can't contact us about anything. And I always like to close, if I can, Juan, by just saying, you've heard me say this before yourself, but if you're not sure who to call, call us. Sometimes you're just driving and you see somebody dump something somewhere. It happens to me sometimes. I think, is that county? Is that state? Is it part of Highway 130, Mount Hamilton Road, Elm Rock? What is it, right? And so then you're sitting there trying to figure out who to call. What we want you to do is just call or email us and let us figure that out. And then you can go about your business and know that the staff that works in my office who are there to serve you, they're following up on that. Don't worry about anyone in my office ever telling you, sorry, that's not a state issue. We won't do that. And if someone ever does do that, please let me know. But it's not the way that we operate. So call anytime that we can help hook you up. That's the message there. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you.